So I wonder if, in a way, COVID has allowed us to rediscover what we need in order to really focus, and that is to be in one place physically, locked away from the distractions. So in a way, has the COVID restrictions been good for attention?
I mean, maybe for some people, but we haven't been locked away without distractions. We've been locked away with nothing but our screens, right? And I think we have to think about some of the ways in which that's affected attention. So let's think about. I went to interview Professor Earl Miller, who's one of the leading neuroscientists in the world at MIT. And he said to me, there's one thing you need to understand about the human brain more than anything else. You can only consciously think about one or two things at a time. That's it. This is a fundamental limitation of the human brain. The human brain has not significantly changed in 40,000 years. It's not going to change on any time scale any of us are going to see. But what's happened is we've fallen from mass delusion. The average American teenager now believes they can follow 6 or 7 forms of media at the same time. I'm sure it's pretty similar in Singapore. And what happens is scientists get not just teenagers, but older people as well into labs, and they get them to think they're doing more than one thing at a time. And what they discover is always the same. You can't do more than one thing at a time. What you do is you juggle very rapidly between tasks. You switch. What was that message on WhatsApp? What did Michelle just ask me? What does it say on the TV there about Ukraine? What's this message on Facebook? Wait, what did Michelle ask me? So we're juggling very, very rapidly. And it turns out that juggling comes with a really big cost. The technical term for that is the switch cost effect. So the switch cost effect is where when you switch rapidly between tasks, you will do all the things you're trying to do much less competently. You'll make more mistakes. You'll be less creative. You'll remember less of what you do. And this sounds like it might be a small effect. This is a big effect. Some studies found just receiving 8 text messages an hour, which doesn't sound like very much, reduces your ability to focus on the main thing you're trying to focus on by 30%. Now, I would argue we are all losing a large amount of our brain power most of the time as a result of this constant switching. So maybe if we've been all shut away in monasteries without our devices, that what you're saying, and of course, I'm sure there are some people like Elizabeth Gilbert, who's a wonderful writer, who can kind of discipline themselves. But I think what's actually happened, the evidence is our screen time actually massively went up for the average person during COVID. I think it's another thing that happened during COVID that's really negatively affected attention and focus that I think is worth thinking about as we come out of the pandemic, as fingers crossed, touch infinite amounts of wood, it seems we're doing, which is to think about stress. So I remember at the start of the pandemic, lots of people saying to me, the people who were not doing the heroic work like driving ambulances, said to me, I'm going to be locked away. I'm finally going to read Tolstoy. I'm going to learn French on Duolingo. And you will have noticed no one read Tolstoy. No one learned French, or very few people, right? In fact, people Googling, how do I get my brain to work, went up by 300%. And I think I understood the reason why even then, because I had already interviewed an incredible woman named Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris, who is the Surgeon General of California, the senior medical officer in the state, and a completely amazing person. And she explained to me, she'd already studied the effect of stress on attention. She said to me, imagine one day you're walking down the street and out of the blue, you're attacked by a bear and you survive. In the weeks and months that follow, something completely involuntary will happen to your attention. You'll start scanning the horizon for signs of risk and danger because something came out of the blue and attacked you. So your brain is doing its job. It's saying, okay, what else might come out of the blue and attack you? Okay, now imagine that you were attacked by a bear again. At that point, you'd likely go into a state called hypervigilance. Hypervigilance is where it's very hard to focus on the thing right in front of you because, your brain is just always scanning for what could endanger you, what could endanger you. And I remember I interviewed a brilliant child psychologist in Adelaide in Australia named Dr. John Giordini, who said to me, look, deep focus is a really good strategy when you're safe, right? Sit and read a book, you'll learn, you'll grow. Deep focus is a really dumb strategy when you're in danger. You'd be a fool to sit at the Battle of the Somme reading Tolstoy. You're going to get shot in the head, right? We evolved to be able to pay deep focus when we feel safe. I think a lot of us have really struggled in this pandemic to focus because we haven't felt safe because we're not safe, right? The bear came back. The bear came back 2 more times. We're in a pandemic. None of us have lived through this before. And in addition to the stress of the fear of the virus, there was also the stress of the huge upending of our lives, our sense of the future. So there are certainly some aspects of what happened in COVID that would have improved people's attention and focus. The world slowed down, and there's evidence that when things slow down, your attention improves. But at the same time, there were also, so you're definitely right to bring that up and put that point to me, Michelle. But I would argue for most people, there were countervailing forces that happened at the same time: more screen time, more switching, more stress. That I think for most of us will have countervailed the positive effects of the slowness, but clearly not for everyone. And Elizabeth Gilbert is clearly a good example of someone for whom the slowness was enough that it countervailed the other factors.
Money FM 89.3.